Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over. I'll start. I started drafting a text in my notes app. Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
Are you talking about the time when I woke up and I saw them cuddling on the couch? Because they fell asleep together on the couch? Or are you talking about when she had her over on Valentine's Day and got her a more sentimental gift than me? You might be talking about the time when she started sleeping in the guest bedroom with her instead of sleeping in our room with me. Or maybe it was when she stopped taking care of our animals. Maybe it was a time when my grandma died and I asked for reassurance and she told me my love was suffocating. Oh, no. Wait. It was the time that I was suicidal and she was too busy making out with this girl in our basement, so I had to call the suicide hotline. You're talking about that time. Oh, it's okay. I'm in a better relationship now.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
Well, I'm sorry, Tyler, that my grandfather's death is more important than their stupid-ass relationship. Keep me up all night. Keep me up. Oh, God. Men suck.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
So, for context, he was barely a musician, and I was convinced that while he was on tour, he had cheated on me. Spoiler alert, he had. So I confronted him about this, and of course he denied it. And his denial, master manipulator, one of the best gaslighters in the game. But his manipulation and gaslighting got so bad that I was questioning my reality, and I said to him, you know, if you aren't lying to me, then I need help. And he was so kind and took me to the doctors, and I was put on medication for paranoia. And then about a year later, we were joking around and I said, yeah, but you did cheat on me while you were on tour, didn't you? And he laughed and said, yeah, I was a bit of a dickhead, wasn't I? A bit.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
So my best friend of 28 years had died unexpectedly, and it was a really big blow for me. Like, I was close enough that I helped plan her funeral with her parents, and I'd gone out of town and to go deal with the funeral, and my boyfriend was like, well, what can I do to help? I said, all I want to come home to is a clean house. That's, that would be wonderful. And he's like, yeah, great, no problem. So after 5 days, I come back, and the dishes that were in the sink when I left were still there. Nothing in the house had been touched. And I looked at him and I just asked why. And he looked at me dead ass and said, I just didn't feel like it. And at that point, I knew that when I needed him, he was never gonna be there. So I left.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
I'm sure I'm going to hell for this, but
he's right here.
He's right here.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
So with one of my exes, he had a very low sex drive and I didn't. So I found myself being rejected quite a lot, which really hurt, but I tried to understand that maybe he just didn't want it that much. And that was fine, it wasn't. But I was trying to deal with that, okay? Because it hurts to be rejected. Anyway, I was with him all morning and I was wearing these sexy hot pants and this like little top, and I was laying next to him and I was kissing him, and yeah, and he was just having none of it. So I was really sad and I just thought, fuck it, I'll go make us some breakfast. So I went to go make us some pancakes. I left the room for a minute, guys, 1 minute. Anyway, he changed his position on the sofa and I thought, that's fucking suspicious. So I walked back to the living room, looked in the mirror, saw the fucking reflection of him, and he was having a wank. Watching porn to some other person. So not only had I left the room for a minute, not only was I rejected all the time, and this time was the last fucking time. I broke up with him a week later.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
My ex and I dated for 3 years until he realized he was like bored of me, and instead of breaking up with me, he just wanted a polyamorous relationship, which I should have said no, but said yes. We got another partner and they were fantastic, but we came together and like realized how gross and disgusting and weird he was, so we got different boyfriends, hung out with them most of the time, and that made him super jealous because he was too gross to get a girlfriend. So one day, me and my partner are out on the town and I get a butt dial from my ex. And he is just stomping around the house by himself talking about how much he hates me. First red flag. I'm like, okay, whatever. But this dude I never talked to in the apartment, only like bought from a couple times, sends me a random Snapchat of all of my keys in the middle of the hallway for anyone to take. So I call my ex's mommy and she helped him move out the next day. But here's the fun part. We had a couple of pet rats at the time, and I guess to get back at us, he started fucking with their cage and they bit the fuck out of him.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over. I'll start.
So this was my partner of 5 years. I don't have time to get into the whole story, but I had to go to the hospital for an operation. It was a hysteroscopy where the pelvic pain specialist was going to open up my uterus, cauterize my cervix, and replace my IUD. This was pre-COVID, so I had tons of time, and I told my partner like months in advance because they were going to help me get home from the hospital. But when they started their new job, they didn't tell their boss that they needed the day off or the morning off to get me to the hospital. So he's already complaining about even having to do this. By the time we get to the hospital, he realizes he's gonna be late for work, hasn't told his boss, and starts yelling at me. So I'm like already on painkillers, about to get surgery, and he's yelling at me about how I'm gonna make him late for work and he's gonna leave. The surgeon had to come out and tell him that if he left, the surgery wasn't gonna happen. It was humiliating. I was sobbing in front of all the nurses while he yelled at me at the hospital because my surgery was gonna make him late for work. Then he went out the night before my birthday, got wasted, and he was so hungover the next day that he slept all day and missed my birthday.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
I had asked him to come to a conference that I had planned with my club members. We had spent months and over $10,000 planning this conference. It was a super big deal for me because this was the first time that I had planned something that big. So the day begins, me and my club members go on stage, we introduce ourselves, and we explain what the day is going to look like. Once I finished doing my introduction, I went off stage and I quickly looked at my phone because I knew that he had recorded me. But when I looked at Snapchat, I saw that he had only taken a picture of the seats in front of him. And he had captioned it, "I can't believe I have to spend my Saturday here, 7 hours of boredom." So I walked directly where he was sitting with the picture still up on my phone. I showed it to him and I told him to leave. The rest of the conference was amazing. It was super successful and we broke up 3 days later.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
So this is a ex. I went to a bris with him and nobody told me what a bris was. I thought it was like a cheers, like a brindis. Did not know it involved what it did. And a drunk baby. I just had no idea. So anyway, afterwards, the family of the babies was so in love and so happy about this baby that later when we left the bris, I was like, I want that one day. Like, I want a family, and do you want that? And do you see that with me? And very calmly, he looked at me and he said, if somebody had a gun to my head and asked me, is Teffy the girl for you? I'd probably say no. And then just kept driving. And I left that evening. So that moment involving gun violence and breaking my heart, okay, a Leo.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
I realized that my relationship was over when he turned to me one morning and asked if I was happy. And my initial response was, yeah, of course. And then he goes, but are you happy with us? Are you actually happy with us? And I had to say, can I get back to you on that one? And then I sat in the room all day long. I went to work. I just kept going through every day. And then I realized that when I finally kind of stopped thinking about everything, I realized how autopilot I was and how my relationship just wasn't a part of my day anymore. It was more so just a thing. I had a roommate, we lived in a 1-bedroom, then we just happened to share a bed, and that's when I realized it was over.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
It was the moment I stepped into the room for her 18th birthday party. So the day of her actual birthday, she was supposed to be hanging out with her family all day, and then she tells me that actually she spent a good amount of time hanging out with insert generic name. I thought it was kind of sus, but I was like, whatever, you know, they're close friends. And so later that night, I go to the birthday party. She doesn't look up. She doesn't look at me. She says exactly 5 words to me for the whole 2 hours I was there. And the entire time, she is literally cuddled up with insert generic name. And like, I'm kind of weirded out by this, so I just text my folks and I'm like, call me and make up an excuse for me to have to leave. Wasn't the best idea, but I was super uncomfortable with how that entire interaction for 2 hours was going. Week later, generic name calls me while I'm sitting in a Target parking lot and tells me that she cheated on me with him. And that relationship still went on for another 4 months.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
Oh, I know this one. Okay. I went on a ski trip with him and his family, and it was amazing. We had like a big house to ourselves, lots of land, our own snowmobiles. I, honest to God, was having a ball on this trip. And then the last night, we decided to play hide and seek as a family. Super cute and fun, right? So I'm not normally very competitive, but every once in a while, I'm like, I'll try. So I really tried. I went and hid in the garage, right? His mom's boyfriend also comes and hides in the garage. And he's like, we should get in the car. And I'm like, so I'm like, well, isn't that cheating? He's like, no, it's not cheating, it's fine. So he sits in the passenger seat, so I'm like, okay, so I sit directly behind him, because I'm already kind of suspicious. And what do you think my new potential father figure says to me? You have such pretty feet. I don't know how he got with a girl like you. I would never let you out of my sight. He told his mom she stayed with him and had him pick me up next time I visited from the train station.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
To be clear, our relationship was over long before this. This was just the moment I actually decided it was over. One night we were in bed, sleeping, and around 5 a.m. my cat threw up on the corner of the bed. I woke up and started cleaning it, and while I was cleaning it, he woke up and asked what happened. I told him that the cat threw up and that I was gonna have to change the sheets. He picked his pillow up off the bed, put it on the floor, and then laid down on the floor and started to go back to sleep. I told him I was going to the laundry room to try to get the cat vomit out and start washing the sheets, and all I asked was that he put a fitted sheet onto the bed and he could lay right back in the bed and use a comforter and go back to sleep. I'm gone for maybe 5 or 10 minutes in the laundry room, and I come back and he's still on the floor, asleep. I woke him up and I was like, bro, are you for real right now? And he said, this is what I'm fucking talking about, Mackenzie. You never care about how tired I am or how late I work. Can you just shut the fuck up and do it yourself? Anyway, so I left him to sleep on the floor, I slept in the living room, and I kicked him out the next day.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
Earlier this year, I went through a very difficult breakup, and I remember in one of our last conversations, he told me that he felt ashamed of me because of my couponing. This past Monday, I was featured in the Boston Globe, one of the largest newspapers in the United States, for being a couponer. So regardless of whether my ex is ashamed of me or not, I think I'm doing just fine.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
I'm really scared he might find this, but at the same time, I really don't give a fuck. Let me paint you a picture of what made me think we're done. So I was working from 5 in the morning to 5 at night, really long days. And then on top of that, I was also in a musical, and I was in rehearsals till 10 or 11 at night. So it was long days, and I enjoyed it. I was actually really happy doing it. And, you know, sometimes I was able to go home and cook him dinner. But one day I decided I'm just going to get fast food, you know? Just make it easy on myself and just go get fast food. He calls me, right? Tells me to come home and cook him dinner because he is hungry. And I just sat in silence, shocked, because I was thinking, wow, he hasn't done anything all day. He doesn't work. Yeah, he wants me to come home and cook him dinner. So I told him, we live across the street from McDonald's. Go figure it out. Then we broke up 2 weeks later. And I'm happier than ever.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
I was writing an email to a friend of mine talking about the guy that I was currently playing around with the permission of my husband. And I was describing the life that my husband and I had. How we would come home from work, spend a little bit of time together, then he'd disappear into his hobby. We'd have supper together, then he'd disappear into his hobby. And then we'd snuggle a bit before bed. And then he'd go to bed in his bedroom while I went to bed in my bedroom. And I said, I didn't know what we have in common anymore. And the moment I put the period on that sentence, I knew it was over.
Ditch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
Okay, here's mine. This picture was taken about 3 months before our 12-year anniversary. He had been out of town working for probably 2 months at this time, and we drove up to visit him in Michigan. This was us walking to dinner. As you can see, I'm back here in the construction, and he's way up there in the yellow shirt. Never once, not once, did he look back at me. He actually walked around the corner and into the restaurant before he realized I wasn't there. So I took this picture to remind me that I never want to feel this way again.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
Okay, this is gonna sound kind of shallow, but bear with me. It was my birthday, and for my birthday present, he gave me this notebook.
It's actually a really cute notebook. I mean, obviously I still have it. Hufflepuff, you know, it's great. Whatever.
It's not the notebook itself, but it was the thing that I realized that day. He and I had been good friends and known each other for well over a year before he and I ever started dating, and by the time we got to my birthday, we had been dating for over 6 months. I watched him put a lot of thought and investment into things that he did for people that he cared about and loved. And like, he did sweet things for me over the time that we dated, but it was just kind of one of those that I realized maybe he's not as invested in this as he's trying to seem. We didn't end up breaking up until later that year, but that was when I knew it wasn't gonna last.
And boy, should I have trusted that instinct.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
We were eating dinner with my mom, and I just looked across at him and was like, "You're so ugly. I have no feelings for you. Any love I had for you was dead." But I just moved on. We didn't actually break up until like 2 months later.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
So I'm not going to say their name. This is a while ago. But we were discussing Lord of the Rings versus Star Wars, and I was expressing that I like Star Wars way more. And they mentioned, and I quote, "I think I like Lord of the Rings more, but that's probably just because I have a degree." And this was well after I expressed shame for not having gone to college multiple times.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
I never really talk about this relationship. I always tell you guys about the toxic cheater that left me, whatever. But I never tell you about the first time I fell in love. I was with him for 5 years nearly, and we did everything together. He was my best friend. He made me laugh more than anyone. We went for meals all the time. We went to zoos. We got fucking yearly zoo memberships. He came on holiday with me and my family. He was there for Asa and Callie being born. And I literally thought, I'm marrying this guy. This is my boyfriend. I'm so lucky I met him so early. And every day he'd come home from work and I'd be so excited. And we'd be like, "Oh, what are we having for dinner? I missed you." Then one day he came home from work and I felt nothing. And I was Googling. I was "Oh no, this is normal. It's just because we've been together for so long." Then I didn't feel attracted to him. Then he'd always choose his game rather than watching something together with me, and it was the hardest thing in the world. But that's when I knew it was over. That first day he got home from work and I felt nothing. But he's happily married now, so.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
It was on my 30th birthday, and all I wanted to do for my birthday was to go up in a hot air balloon, and I was going to pay for it myself. I was even going to pay for him, and but he didn't want to come because he had to get up too early in the morning to leave to go on this thing. So I went on my own, and there I was in that basket sailing above Melbourne with 3 other couples and just me. But I knew deep in my heart that was going to be it. That was going to be what my life will be like from then on, and I was right. And anyway, 14 years on, I've gone on some of the most amazing adventures all around the world, all on my own. And it just goes to show you that sometimes endings can be amazing beginnings, but you just don't see it at the time.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
So about 3 years into my relationship with my ex, we went on a trip to Cuba, and I was so excited for it. The whole time we were there, he would reject me, when I would come on to him, if you know what I mean. So towards the end of the trip, I confronted him. I was like, "Hey, why won't you me? What's that all about? Why not?" And he flipped a fucking switch and was like, "Did you ever think that maybe I'm just not fucking attracted to you anymore?" And I was like, maybe it's just in my fucking dumbass brain that didn't consider that before dropping $1,000 to spend a week alone with you on an island after being with you for 3 years. I didn't think of that, and it's my bad. That's my bad. I did not consider that before spending that much money to go on vacation with you.
Stitch with the moment you knew your relationship was over.
My ex-husband and I had been together for about 8.5 years, and we just bought our first house and were getting ready to move. It was a super stressful time in our life. Our relationship had been on the rocks for a while. We had been in counseling for years. We had been communicating for years. I'd been telling him for years that I felt super sad and alone in our relationship. I felt like I didn't have any support. About a week and a half before we were supposed to move, I got a call from my family telling me my dad had had a medical emergency. He was really sick and might die, and I needed to go be there with him. And when I told my ex, he lost his shit. He was gonna have to pack alone and move alone, and he was gonna be alone, and it was gonna be terrible. And fair, yeah, stressful, but I too was moving, and my dad was also now potentially dying. He was too busy crying about packing boxes alone that he couldn't even give me a hug. We had hired a moving company. And that's when I knew I'd rather be alone by myself than alone in a marriage. Oof.